In every age, people have asked the same questions. What is the good life? How should we treat one another? What does it mean to be free or virtuous or just? What does it mean to be human? Western Moral Philosophy for Beginners and Selenius Media takes you on a guided journey through the minds that shaped the moral backbone of the West, from the earliest Greek thinkers to the modern age. Lived stories of struggle, ambition, conflict, revelation, all unfolding against the sweep of history. If you've ever wanted to understand philosophy clearly, calmly, and humanly, if you want to know not just what these thinkers argued, but why it mattered, follow Western Moral Philosophy for Beginners today and explore 10 more podcasts at Selenius Media. Erasmus of Rotterdam was a prominent figure of the Renaissance, celebrated for his contributions to humanism and the early Reformation. His work can be viewed as a bridge between the intellectual revival of antiquity and the reformative movements that aimed to reshape the religious landscape of Europe in the early 16th century. A nuanced thinker, Erasmus championed the values of education, ethics, and critical inquiry, navigating the complex relationship between faith and reason that marked his era. In this deep dive episode, we will explore the moral philosophy central to Erasmus's thought, the legacy of his ideas, and their relevance today. Erasmus is perhaps best known for his seminal text in Praise of Folly, written in 1509. This work is both a satirical examination of society and a profound commentary on human nature, critiquing the follies and moral shortcomings of his contemporaries, especially within religious institutions. Through the voice of folly, Erasmus highlights the absurdities of pride, ignorance, and superstition. This playful yet biting critique serves as a foundation for understanding his broader moral philosophy, which emphasizes the importance of education and the cultivation of virtue over dogma. His humanist approach advocates for a return to the scriptures and the study of classical texts, seeking wisdom that empowers individuals towards moral improvement. Erasmus's moral philosophy is deeply intertwined with his views on free will and the nature of human conduct. One of his key assertions is that humans have the capacity to choose virtue, despite the inherent tendencies towards vice. In his writings, particularly in On Free Will, Erasmus argues against the deterministic views presented by some of his contemporaries, notably Martin Luther. Luther's emphasis on divine grace and predestination spurred Erasmus to contend that moral responsibility is intrinsic to the human experience. He acknowledges the limitations of human strength and acknowledges that divine grace plays a role. However, he insists that individuals must actively pursue moral improvement and engage in ethical decision-making. To illustrate Erasmus's central arguments, let's unpack a few critical ideas further. One core argument of Erasmus is the importance of education in shaping moral character. He believed that through education, especially an education steeped in the study of classical philosophy and Christian scriptures, individuals could develop the capacity for moral reasoning. For Erasmus, knowledge acts as a guiding light that illuminates the path toward ethical living. In our modern context, consider the ongoing debates surrounding education reform and the role of critical thinking in school curricula. The ethos that education elevates character and promotes civic responsibility resonates in today's discussions about fostering ethical citizens in an increasingly complex world. Encouraging critical inquiry and moral reflection in education remains a vital concern as we navigate the challenges posed by technology, social media, and the polarization of contemporary society. Another significant aspect of Erasmus's thought is his emphasis on the importance of inner morality over external conformity to religious practices. In reflecting on the state of the Church in his time, Erasmus criticized not just the corruption within religious institutions, but also the tendency of many to equate outward rituals with genuine piety. His argument was that true religion lies in the sincerity of one's heart and the desire to lead a virtuous life, rather than mere adherence to rituals and doctrines. This notion fosters a spirit of individual ethical exploration, inviting believers to seek personal connections to moral truths rather than blind allegiance to institutional authority. This perspective resonates strongly with modern discussions about personal ethics, particularly in areas such as bioethics and medical consent. In a world where rapid advancements in medicine and technology often outpace ethical guidelines, the call for individual moral agency becomes imperative. Patients today are encouraged to engage actively in their healthcare decisions, emphasizing autonomy and the moral significance of informed consent. Erasmus's belief in the importance of inner morality calls us to recognize and support the moral reasoning of individuals as they navigate complex ethical dilemmas in healthcare, technology, and other facets of life. Erasmus also made significant contributions to the dialogue surrounding humility and the recognition of human fallibility. He argued that acknowledging our limitations is essential to the cultivation of virtue. In a striking counterpoint to the arrogance sometimes displayed by leaders and scholars, he posited that humility allows for greater compassion and understanding in our interactions with others. This message is particularly apt in today's political climate, where leaders often engage in combative rhetoric rather than cultivating a spirit of humility and open dialogue. The idea that we can learn from one another, despite differing views, is crucial for progress in democratic societies and in resolving the complexities of social justice and human rights issues. However, Erasmus's philosophy did not come without its criticisms. One notable critique emerged from Luther and other reformers who believed that Erasmus's emphasis on free will diminished the essential nature of divine grace. They argued that true moral renewal required a deeper, more transformative change instigated by God's grace, rather than a reliance on human effort. In response, Erasmus maintained his conviction that moral choice must be an exercise of human agency, insisting that free will is a gift that enables moral growth. This ongoing debate highlights a crucial dimension of Western moral philosophy, wherein discussions about human agency, divine influence, and moral responsibility continue to shape theological and ethical discourses. In connecting Erasmus with earlier and later figures in the Western moral tradition, we can observe his relationship with Augustine of Hippo. Augustine's reflections on grace and free will laid the groundwork for some of the debates that Erasmus later engaged with. While Erasmus accepted the significance of grace, his humanist perspective led him to stress the vital role of human reasoning and choice in ethical discourse. Looking ahead, one can draw connections between Erasmus and later Enlightenment thinkers, such as Immanuel Kant, who similarly emphasized the importance of moral agency. Kant's concepts of autonomy and the categorical imperative echo Erasmus's belief in the necessity of individual moral reasoning, though framed within a very different philosophical context. This continuity across time illustrates how the questions posed by Erasmus regarding the nature of humanity, ethics, and the divine continue to resonate in contemporary moral philosophy. As we conclude this exploration of Erasmus's thought, it is worth reflecting on how these ideas might apply to our own lives. In an era where access to information and differing ideologies can create both connection and division, the call for critical education and personal moral reflection remains ever pertinent. The challenge for each of us lies in balancing inquiry with humility, knowing that our understanding is always evolving and that our personal ethical journeys require both reflection and engagement. By embracing the spirit of Erasmus, we might navigate the complexities of our modern existence with a commitment to moral improvement, recognizing our shared humanity even in the face of profound differences. In the end, the essence of Erasmus's humanism lies in the belief that each person is capable of moral reasoning and therefore of contributing to a better society. As you reflect on these ideas, consider how you might harness your agency in making ethical choices in your own life and interactions with others. Just as Erasmus invited his contemporaries to engage deeply with their moral convictions, so too can we awaken to the moral possibilities that lie within our choices each day. Building upon our examination of Erasmus's core ideas, it is important to consider the broader implications of his philosophy for understanding moral development and ethical discourse in our time. Erasmus believed that one's character could be refined through the pursuit of knowledge, critical thinking, and personal virtue. This belief prompts us to ask deeper questions about how we cultivate our moral sensibilities and engage with the world around us. It is clear that his vision of education and moral capability is as relevant today as it was during the Renaissance. At the heart of Erasmus's philosophy lies the conviction that knowledge is not merely a tool for intellectual achievement. Rather, it is a prerequisite for living ethically. His insistence on the study of classical texts and scriptures was not solely to enhance scholarly pursuits, but rather to cultivate a deeper understanding of human nature and ethical responsibility. This endeavor can be likened to the contemporary push for liberal education, where schools and universities aim to create well-rounded individuals capable of critical thought and ethical reasoning. The aim is to produce citizens who are not just knowledgeable, but who can also navigate complex moral landscapes, embody civic virtues, and engage in community building. This focus on education extends into various fields today, such as climate ethics and social responsibility. In our globalized world, individuals and institutions are increasingly faced with moral dilemmas that have far-reaching consequences. The climate crisis, for instance, requires a level of moral reasoning that goes beyond mere economic considerations. Engaging with this moral landscape evokes a call to reflect on how our collective actions, rooted in knowledge, ethics, and critical inquiry, can either mitigate or exacerbate global challenges. Just as Erasmus advocated for a rich educational experience to understand these intricacies, today's discourse around sustainability often hinges on our ability to question, reflect, and act on moral responsibility to future generations. Additionally, Erasmus's emphasis on inner morality invites us to reconsider the role of personal authenticity in our ethical decision-making. He criticized a religious framework that prioritized outward observances over genuine moral transformation. The idea that true virtue derives from an authentic desire to live ethically resonates in modern discussions about corporate ethics. In a world where organizations often face scrutiny over ethical practices, the call for businesses to align their operations with genuine social responsibility echoes Erasmus's insistence on sincerity. The rise of corporate social responsibility initiatives and ethical consumerism illustrates a contemporary connection to Erasmus's insights, as consumers increasingly seek authenticity from the brands they support, favoring those that demonstrate genuine commitment to ethical values. The concept of humility, central to Erasmus's moral philosophy, holds profound implications for modern interpersonal relationships, politics, and conflict resolution. In an age where socio-political divisions often manifest in combative and polarized discourse, the challenge resides in fostering a culture that embraces humility as a guiding principle. Erasmus posited that true understanding arises from recognizing our own fallibility and learning from one another. This perspective is particularly critical when we consider how dialogue in contemporary society often devolves into echo chambers, where alternative viewpoints are dismissed rather than engaged with. To adopt a more Erasmus-like approach in our daily interactions may mean intentionally inviting diverse perspectives into our discourse, and cultivating an attitude of empathy toward those with whom we disagree. Reflecting on the discourse surrounding social movements and public policy highlights the importance of humility in ethical leadership. By acknowledging differing experiences and perspectives, leaders cultivate a more inclusive dialogue that supports collective problem-solving rather than deepening societal rifts. In exploring the limitations of Erasmus's philosophy, we must also address the criticisms it has faced throughout history and how these critiques have informed contemporary ethical debates. While Erasmus maintained that human choice plays a fundamental role in moral development, several early Reformation thinkers, particularly Luther, rejected this notion in favor of a more deterministic theology. Luther's stance emphasized the necessity of divine grace for spiritual renewal, arguing that without divine intervention, humanity is fundamentally incapable of striving toward virtue. This divergence of thought led to significant theological disputes that would shape Protestant reformations throughout Europe. Critics of Erasmus's emphasis on free will contended that his ideas risked undermining the foundational Christian belief in redemption through God's grace. While protecting the integrity of individual moral agency, they cautioned that any assertion of human capability could inadvertently lead to moral complacency or an overemphasis on human achievement. Erasmus anticipated this critique and sought to balance his ideas with a recognition of divine grace. He argued that while human choice is essential, it is always accompanied by the need for divine support. This view lays the groundwork for modern discussions surrounding moral psychology, where the interplay between agency and external influences continues to be a focal point of inquiry. Contemporary philosophers and theologians grapple with questions of moral formation, recognizing that human behavior is often shaped by a confluence of societal, environmental, and psychological factors rather than free will alone. Moreover, Erasmus's philosophy challenges us to reflect on the nature of moral dilemmas we confront in the modern era. His ideas prompt questions about the role of bias in ethical decision-making, particularly as it pertains to emerging technologies. Artificial intelligence, for instance, presents complex ethical issues regarding accountability, transparency, and the potential for discrimination embedded in algorithmic decision-making. Here, one might consider how Erasmus's principles could guide our approach to these dilemmas, encouraging us to navigate the moral complexities of technology with education, a quest for understanding, and a commitment to ethical principles. In examining the reception of Erasmus's ideas, we can draw connections to later thinkers, enriching our understanding of the lineage of Western moral philosophy. For instance, Immanuel Kant's emphasis on autonomy and moral duty arguably builds on the groundwork laid by Erasmus regarding the centrality of moral agency. Kant's categorical imperative, which posits that one should act only according to maxims that could be universal laws, resonates deeply with Erasmus's belief in the importance of individual ethical reasoning. Both figures advocate for a moral framework grounded in human capacity and responsibility, albeit articulated through different epistemological lenses. Furthermore, the relevance of Erasmus's ideas regarding education, humility, and moral inquiry continues to be apparent in modern pedagogical practices and ethical theories. The development of virtue ethics in contemporary philosophy similarly echoes Erasmus's insights on character formation as influenced by personal choice and internal motivations. Philosophers like Alistair MacIntyre and Martha Nussbaum have revived these Aristotelian themes in their discussions of ethical cultivation, reinforcing the notion that moral education is integral to becoming a virtuous individual. As we integrating Erasmus into our own reflections, it is essential to consider the way these ideas can provide insight and guidance in our daily lives. In our current era, characterized by rapid change and complex moral questions, we must harness the spirit of Erasmus's humanism to navigate the myriad challenges we face. This necessitates a commitment to education, embracing opportunities for growth and critical engagement. Each of us can reflect on our individual paths toward ethical living, much like Erasmus encouraged his contemporaries. As we face decisions, whether in our personal relationships, professional practices, or societal obligations, we should strive to engage in continuous moral inquiry. The cultivation of an ethical mindset requires courage, accountability, and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and the world. By practicing humility and seeking understanding, we can navigate the complexities of our moral landscape with a deeper sense of connection to others. In closing, the legacy of Erasmus's moral philosophy endures, reminding us of the profound link between education, personal agency, and the pursuit of virtue. His insights call us to embark on our own journeys of ethical exploration and moral commitment. As we confront the dilemmas and choices of modern life, we have the opportunity, indeed, the responsibility, to cultivate our moral capabilities, engaging in the world with empathy, critical thinking, and a dedication to promoting a more just and virtuous society. Thus, the questions he posed centuries ago remain vibrant. How might we choose to live in the face of uncertainty? How may our choices reflect our commitment to dignity, integrity, and our shared humanity? By grappling with these questions, we keep the spirit of Erasmus alive, fostering a richer moral dialogue in an ever-evolving world. Continuing our exploration of Erasmus's legacy and its implications within the context of contemporary society, we must delve deeper into how his ideas on humanism, free will, and the ethical moral dimensions of education have evolved over time, impacting the fabric of modern moral philosophy. Erasmus's humanism, while explicitly rooted in the intellectual revival of classical antiquity, emphasizes the importance of human agency, suggesting that individuals have the capacity to shape their moral destinies. This belief stands in stark contrast to deterministic philosophies that prevailed in some theological circles at the time. Erasmus's notion of free will resonates not only as a philosophical argument, but also as a call to ethical action. He posited that moral choices are not merely the result of divine grace, but also stem from individual agency. This emphasis on human choice, especially in moral matters, empowers the individual to take responsibility for their actions and decisions. In contemporary settings, this idea of moral agency is highly relevant. Take, for example, the discussions surrounding climate change and environmental ethics. Individuals today are encouraged to recognize their role in the larger ecosystem, whether through sustainable living, reductions in waste, or advocating for policy changes. The moral imperative to act, rooted in one's capacity for choice and ethical engagement, echoes Erasmus's call for personal individual responsibility. The choices we make, driven by ethical inquiry and a commitment to communal well-being, reflect an application of Erasmus's view of free will in grappling with the profound challenges our planet faces. Moreover, Erasmus's assertion that education fuels moral development can be found in the ongoing debates about the role of liberal education in preparing engaged citizens. Scholars in pedagogy emphasize the importance of teaching critical thinking skills, fostering an environment that encourages ethical reasoning, and cultivating moral virtues that are essential for navigating complex societal issues. When we consider the modern educational landscape, where standardized testing often takes precedence over the cultivation of character and ethical discernment, we may reflect on Erasmus's legacy as a reminder of the necessity of holistic education, one that shapes the mind, body, and spirit. The dynamics of ethical education today also highlight the tension between universal moral principles and culturally specific understandings of ethics. Erasmus advocated for a common grounding in humanist values accessible to all, regardless of their religious or social context. The modern dialogue about ethics continues to grapple with questions of cultural relativism and universalism, seeking to find balance among diverse perspectives. Take the realm of global justice. Groups advocating for human rights often draw on a shared understanding of human dignity that transcends cultural boundaries. This aspiration for mutual respect and understanding in moral matters reflects Erasmus's vision of education as a means to foster empathy and ethical engagement. In reflecting on Erasmus's critique of external religiosity, we find a thread that connects to modern discussions about authentic leadership, especially in the political arena. The excessive adherence to rituals that Erasmus admonished can be likened to the phenomenon of performative politics, where leaders may showcase a facade of moral rectitude without genuine commitment to ethical principles. Erasmus's advocacy for authentic internal morality challenges us to seek leaders who demonstrate integrity, humility, and a true commitment to the common good. In modern democratic societies, where polarization often leads to reactive partisanship, the call for leaders who foster dialogue and understanding echoes Erasmus's ideals. Yet with these explorations of Erasmus's ethics comes the acknowledgement of significant criticisms and limitations that have marked his philosophy throughout history. While questioning the balance of free will and divine grace, his position often led to disputes within the theological community and left some critics wondering whether he downplayed the transformative nature of grace in moral renewal. This theological nuance invites a contemporary reflection. Can the embrace of individual agency risk marginalizing the transcendent elements often considered vital in spiritual growth? Critics might point out that when moral choice is overly emphasized, as in Erasmus's writings, it could inadvertently lead to challenges in addressing systemic issues that require collective action. Issues like institutional racism or poverty often stem from structural injustices that cannot be resolved merely through individual moral choices. This critique suggests a potential limitation in Erasmus's philosophy when addressing these broader societal challenges. Modern discourses on justice often emphasize the need for not only individual accountability, but also systemic overhaul, arguing that while personal morality matters, collective efforts are required to initiate substantial change. One significant contemporary thinker who responds to the limitations of both Erasmus and other foundational figures in the moral tradition is John Rawls. His theory of justice, which proposes a framework for societal fairness that considers the distribution of resources and opportunities, introduces dimensions that Erasmus might not have fully accounted for. While Erasmus emphasizes personal moral journeys, Rawls's approach invites us to consider justice as a social contract, positing that ethical frameworks must include a recognition of structural inequalities that impede genuine moral agency for certain individuals or communities. The extent of structural challenges compels us to delve deeper into how Erasmus's focus on individual moral reasoning is received in modern applied ethics, especially in delicate areas like bioethics and artificial intelligence. As we grapple with new technologies, ethical decision-making grows increasingly complex. The application of Erasmus's principles invites us to engage with ongoing debates on the responsibilities of technology creators, to consider the implications of their innovations on human dignity and legacy. In an age where human actions are mediated by algorithms and decisions, accountability and ethical reflection grow more urgent. The individual moral agency that Erasmus championed finds itself tested. This resonates in fields like medical ethics, where patients, empowered by the knowledge and agency emphasized by Erasmus, are increasingly placed at the center of decision-making processes. The ethical obligation to respect patient autonomy provides a framework for understanding how one's capacity for informed choice intersects with ethical imperatives in healthcare. The nuances of consent, transparency, and shared decision-making embody Erasmus's ideals of moral engagement, whereby individuals are encouraged to participate in their ethical journeys actively and meaningfully. Despite the critiques, Erasmus's humanist ideals continue to inspire modern ethical discourse, leading to the flourishing of contemporary virtue ethics. His belief in the cultivation of character and moral development as central to ethical living resonates with modern philosophers such as Alasdair MacIntyre and Martha Nussbaum, who advocate for education systems encouraging personal growth and moral understanding. MacIntyre's emphasis on narrative and community in ethical life intertwines with Erasmus's thrust toward the relational aspects of virtue, suggesting that individual morals cannot be separated from broader societal connections. This conversation evokes questions about how community and tradition shape our moral landscapes and the extent to which personal ethics can flourish within communal contexts. As we return to Erasmus's teachings about humility and recognizing our limitations, we are prompted to consider the relevance of these ideals in the context of activism and social change. In examining modern movements advocating for equality and justice, the humility that Erasmus espoused can be transformative. The practice of recognizing one's own biases, engaging with diverse communities, and embodying a willingness to learn serves as a vital foundation for effective advocacy in contemporary society. In this light, humility facilitates genuine dialogue instead of entrenched viewpoints. Connecting back to the contentious political climate many experience today, advocating for civil discourse underscores the essence of Erasmus's legacy. Erasmus reminded us that moral reflection is not solely an intellectual exercise, but involves the heart and the spirit. The applications of his philosophy in everyday life prompt us to act with consistency, compassion, and integrity. As we navigate the realities of our personal and public lives, consider how Erasmus's exploration of moral choices reverberates with our own decisions. Each day presents a multitude of opportunities for ethical engagement, whether we are reflecting on our consumption habits, our leadership within professional settings, or our interactions with friends and communities. The challenge lies in dedicating ourselves to a deeper inquiry of our motives and actions. In conclusion, the legacy of Erasmus's humanism invites us into a profound conversation with our own ethical frameworks. As we reflect on his teachings, we are encouraged to cultivate moral reasoning through education, humility, and authentic engagement in the world. The recognition that we possess the capacity for moral growth, even amidst uncertainty and complex challenges, empowers us to take active roles in our lives and communities. Erasmus's thought serves as a guide through the often turbulent waters of ethical decision-making, reminding us of the importance of nurturing our inner moral compass while advocating for understanding, compassion, and justice in an increasingly interconnected world. Through this lens, we can consider how our individual efforts contribute to the broader tapestry of human dignity, mutual respect, and our shared humanity. Reflecting on how our choices may illuminate not only our paths, but also those of others. In engaging with these questions continuously, we honor Erasmus's legacy, thus perpetuating a tradition that spans centuries and calls us to embody the ideals he championed in our lives today. Word count 4099.
Midnight rails under silver moon, dusty boots on a winding road. A shadow's the only friend I've known since she packed up and let me go. Empty whiskey bottle on the seat, her laugh still echoes in my bones. The saddle's heavy with memories. I ride alone where the wind still blows. nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Sunrise paints the horizon gold, but it don't warm a lonesome soul. Every town I pass feels half her size. Every trail's haunted by goodbye. I whisper prayers to open skies, hoping someday my heart'll find a brand new path beyond the pain, where broken hearts can heal in time. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be, nowhere else to be. Nowhere else to be. No